obviously I don't intend to spoil too much of it, but I don't think I was as excited for it as I probably would have been, in previous times, because we've done it to death and we won't do the topic again, but where we are with Marvel and their cycle of just overload of content up to this point.
Well, I think, not to cut you off there, but I think even if you hadn't had everything with Phase 4, I think that, like, this Black Panther movie is, if, like, we'd been hitting kind of hit after hit with Phase 4, I still think there'd be this, not really know what to expect with this, because obviously the spectre that hangs over that is Chadwick Boseman, and I don't think I'd be able to go into this film with like that kind of level of excitement, because it's just like there's obviously this kind of massive shadow, or whatever you want to call it, that hangs over this film,
Yeah, I mean there is a little bit of that, but the first movie was so fantastic, and look, Chadwick Boseman's obviously the central character and incredibly important to everything about it, and his performance that brought Black Panther to life was amazing. And we'll always have those performances to kind of go back and reference, which is cool. But I think everyone else in that movie, the aesthetic of that movie, the soundtrack of that movie, everything else was nailed so well that, to me, doing the story about the loss of the Black Panther and how the world around him would react to that, they could make that work. And do you know what? And they did a pretty good job. So it kind of starts off with Shuri, his sister, obviously dealing with his loss, and just trying to figure out anything that she could have done to sort of prevent it. And her sadness is eventually masked over by the arrival into the MCU of Namor.
But before you continue, is without spoilers,
yes,
is how he dies an important plot point in the movie, or is it just they start with him being dead and it's just that's it?
He's dead, but I think how he dies isn't important, but the fact that Shuri, his sister, is trying to deal with, she's obviously incredibly intelligent, she's a brilliant scientist, she's invented all of this stuff with the use of vibranium, and always has a solution to every problem, but it's more her not being able to deal with the fact that she couldn't have done anything to prevent his death. And that's one of like her central growth points throughout the movie.
I think that's a smart way to go. I think that's a really good way to go with that.
Yeah, agreed. And again, no spoilers, everyone knows Namor's in the movie, and I think he was a pretty good portrayal of Namor. I think they kind of went a route of the American military were trying to locate vibranium, basically, and the idea that they had was to use some technology that had been developed by a student at MIT, and Namor is obviously pissed because his secret city that no one really knows about is actually sat on another wealth and mine of vibranium, so he's trying to keep the Americans away.
Isn't that convenient? These two secret societies are just so happen to be built on this extremely rare, valuable resource.
If that did happen, it would make it a lot easier to keep your society secret, wouldn't it? Because you'd have access to this thing that could help you, A, defend yourself, and B, ultimately mask yourself with that technology. So
is it just effectively a second Wakanda then?
No, because it's underwater.
Oh, right.
Like the song Year 3000 by Busted, like everyone lives underwater in this city that is obviously...
But what about your great-great-great-granddaughter?
Yeah, even her. She's in the city and she's blue. All of the people that inhabit Namor City except Namor are blue, and I immediately thought, oh god, I have to watch an Avatar movie at some point in the next few months as well. I could do without
no one is forcing you, Jack. You don't have to.
I feel like I've got to see it. I feel like it's going to be a train wreck, right?
It's like you don't get paid on this podcast. Like there's no kind of obligation to watch anything.
Oh, come on. I got my cinema card. I want to go and watch it. I know it's going to be bad, but, I've got to get through it, That's just how it is with some movies. Yeah, so Namor wants to exact revenge at first on the scientist who happens to be a student that created this thing. And then he doesn't want to stop there. He basically is like, right, well, you're Wakanda. I can't remember the name of the kingdom. I feel really guilty, but it's, I think...
Fake Atlantis.
It is basically like Atlantis.
Aquanda.
No, it's really Talakan.
Oh, come on, that was really good. Not even a chuckle, nothing.
Sorry, I was halfway through trying to remember the stupid name of the stupid underwater city. I didn't appreciate your pun. Aquanda is pretty funny. Yeah, but yeah, so they go to Wakanda, and yeah, Namor at first is like, yeah, I want to take this scientist out, but then he's like, actually, no, I want to team up with Wakanda and have world domination. And that is kind of where I will end describing the initial point of the movie, because then, and everything from there on out is like a massive spoiler. It's pretty good. There's some good action scenes, some interesting action scenes, some decent character development, but only really with a couple of characters. Just some generally pretty cool moments, but it's not gonna change the genre. Like, there's nothing particularly inventive or new in here. It's just a solid continuation of the story. Now, had this just been a solid entry in the MCU and the MCU still be on fire, I think the tone of the reviews for it would have maybe been a bit different, where they would have been like, yep, this is a good movie and blah, 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 and yep, Marvel continue. But because of that slightly weakened thing that we've already mentioned, I think people look at the runtime of this movie at like over 2.5 hours, nearly 3 hours long, and all of the content within it, and probably just like, oh my God, like I just can't be bothered with it. So I get that, because it's, you know, it's nothing particularly crazy or inventive, and there's no like, you know, reinventing of the wheel, no new things to be drawn about the superhero genre from this movie. It's just a good reminder of all of the good work that Ryan Coogler did building this universe in the first place, and all of the actors involved in it, making it really cool, interesting home away from home. We don't really spend enough time in Talokan to kind of get an active representation or a feel for that place like we do with Wakanda, but then it's underwater, so it's like it's pretty difficult to get like an experience of an underwater city. Because you know, no one can really talk underwater, so I don't know. I feel like weirdly Aquaman did a slightly better job with their underwater city in that movie, but you know, maybe that's probably going to be sacrilegious to someone, so I apologize if it is. But it's a good movie, and if you like the first Black Panther, you'll like it. Just don't expect it to be better or, you know, anything like that. And there is a nice tribute to Chadwick Boseman in there at the end of the movie, and like the final bits and pieces of the movie are kind of, again, it's focused more not necessarily on the outcome of the story, but more around the celebration of the relationship of Chadwick Boseman with some of the characters in the movie, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's fine. It's a 7 out of 10 movie. So don't go into it expecting this is the best thing ever. If you just kind of go in, enjoy it for what it is, one of those type of things. But it's better than average, but it doesn't cross over from good into very good.
I mean, I feel like we're past the point now, specifically with the MCU at least, of like expecting or wanting a film to be a genre defining or genre changing type of film. Like, I don't know, I feel like we've done as much as we can do with that. Now obviously anything could come along at some point, but I can't say that I'm going into any of these. I'm not going to go into fucking Quantumania thinking, right, this is the one, this is a game changer.
But the thing is, the first Black Panther movie was a game changer, so I do think there would be a little bit of expectation around this as a follow-up. And obviously it is a very difficult task, you know, doing a movie without the central character of the movie and that situation. And I think they handled it for the most part pretty well. I don't know too much else that they could have done. I think the things that I probably would have liked a bit more in the movie would have been more interaction between the characters and kind of more understanding of who they are as people, and a bit more development. Like there's dramatic moments with, say, 3 or 4 of the main characters, and we only really introspectively explore the feelings of them a little bit, but you don't really get too much into it, whereas there is a lot of kind of fixation on the, let's show all of this cool stuff in an underwater city for a while. And yeah, I don't think it makes the best usage of its runtime, this film. I feel like I would like to have seen a bit more.
Yeah, when you talk about like the runtime is what, it's 240, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are they doing with the time then?
Yeah, I mean, right?
I mean, it's not like any other superhero movies this year have gone excess of 2.5 hours and felt like it was a fucking 2-hour film stretched out to that.
I don't know.
You know?
The Batman made 2 movies, though. That's the reason that film is 3 hours long. It's 2 different movies. Whereas, what are they doing here for 2 hours 40?
It doesn't feel like it's 2 hours 40, I would say. And that might just be because I dropped in like right as the movie started and completely missed all the trailers and stuff. Sometimes if I sit through a bunch of trailers before a movie and it's a long movie, it kind of annoys me a little bit more.
I mean, I would say for 2 hours 40, I want to see a lot of Martin Freeman on the screen.
Yeah, Martin Freeman is in it quite like a little bit. But he's another one of the, again, I don't want to spoil it, but he's another one of the characters I feel like the movie did a little bit dirty. I feel like you could have done more with Martin Freeman.
That's just outrageous.
You just could have done. It just could have done a little bit more. And I feel like that about pretty much everyone except Shuri, is that they could have done a little bit more with every single one of the characters. Whereas I think Shuri's stuff was really good. And she was like the central character essentially of the movie. People were like, oh, who's going to be the main character? It ended up being Shuri basically, with all the stuff that she was dealing with around the loss of her brother and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Without
getting into too many spoilers, but yeah, it's a good movie, but it could have been more. But it's still enjoyable, watchable content for the time that it does run.
The one other question that I have, and it's a question that sort of bleeds into all of these films at this point, is like the first Black Panther really feels like a kind of isolated film that, other than maybe 1 or 2 plot points, could have just standed as its like own superhero film, not tied to like the overall MCU. Does Wakanda Forever continue that, or does it suffer from other films where it's like having to pull different strings like from other parts of the MCU to make it feel part of that universe?
I mean, it does feel like a standalone movie, like but it away from the MCU, but it, as a continuation of the Black Panther universe.
Okay, so, well that's fine then.
So could you just watch it? Like if you've never seen the first Black Panther movie, you probably could, but you wouldn't enjoy it because they don't really colour in a lot of the detail.
If it's part of like that self-contained universe, then that's absolutely fine. There's no issue with that.
Yeah, it works if you've seen the first Black Panther, but you don't have to have seen the whole MCU or anything. And it does nothing to push the MCU timeline forward, aside from introduce Namor, who at some stage they might come back to, and they might come back to Talokan as a place, maybe. And that's about it.